Good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to talk today about ever upward spirals. And we've talked about that in some of our classes, which is why I'm getting some chuckles here. But the ever upward spirals are happening in our spirituality. So the topic today is actually International New Thought Day, because the first Sunday in March for the last 6 years has been International New Thought Day. And that's because New Thought as a denomination has come into its own since the 2009 World Parliament of Religions, which is the first time that New Thought was represented as one of the religions together with all of the other world religions, many of which you're familiar with and some of which you're not. And the important thing about New Thought is that it's not new. The idea of New Thought is that we are having a new thought. And the process that we're talking about, the whole spiritual practice, is about having a new thought and having that new thought create a new experience, which is an upward spiral from where every religion has been since the beginning of time. So every Sunday we light the flames of faith, and we've got 9 candles over here. And I'm going to go into some of the details and the nuance behind what we do on a regular basis. That's going to be the head-based part of this for today, and for everybody who's really heart-based or core-based, I apologize. And you're going to spend a little time in your head. And for those of you who love being in your head, we're going to do a little bit in our hearts as well. As we go through the flames of faith, those are actually in chronological order, starting with the shamanic traditions, which are those ideas of where everything, there's something bigger than me. And they came up with ideas of lots of different gods, a god of the sun, a god of the moon, a god of the sea, a god of this, that, and the other thing, and different gods, different deities who were carrying that power. And that served its purpose. Ever upward spirals went past that. The last one of those was Hinduism, and there are lots of different deities in Hinduism. And as modern-day Hindus will tell you, those are different aspects of the one God. But Abraham came along with this wonderful idea, no, there's one God. There is only one God. And Judaism was born with Moses and the 10 Commandments, and there is one God, and there are laws that are in place. And that was a breakthrough, transformative idea. Ever upward spirals. Jesus came along from the Jewish tradition, and he said it's all about love. Now, he wasn't turning his back on anything that had come before. What he was saying was God is love. God is love. So if we are going to embody our true spiritual selves, if we're going to connect with the truth of who and what we are, we're going to do it by being love, by experiencing the truth of the love that we are. And he threw in a couple of other really cool things like miraculous healing. And that's what the stories are about. He came teaching love, and through love did all of those healings that show up in the Bible. Pretty cool story. And he gave some clues that what he was showing us, what he was demonstrating, was something that it wasn't unique to him. The code words that he used to tell us that what he was doing we could do too was all this I do, you can do, and more. It wasn't even that well hidden. And time passed, ever upward spirals. Muhammad came along, and he said there is no God but God. What he was saying is there is nothing but God. Everything is God. And if you echo that back to what Jesus said, everything is love. And we lost our way for a little while, but ever upward spirals. Those ideas continue to grow and continue to expand and continue to evolve. So here's a little bit of a history lesson on New Thought. Because, as I said, New Thought isn't new, but the thought that we're having right now is new to us right now. So the philosophy came from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he had... Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that was in the early 1800s. And he was in Boston, and he was a Unitarian minister, and he rejected the Calvinist idea that there's a Father, a Son, and a Holy Spirit. He said, no, there's just one. And he was all about what he called the oversoul. He was all about, there is this one power and it's showing up as each of us. One of the great quotes from Emerson is, what lies before us and what lies behind us is nothing compared to what lies within us. He was telling us that that divine power, that infinite love that is everything that is everywhere, is us. When we turn our attention to God, if we're not doing it by turning within, we've missed the point. That divine power and presence that is everything has to be each of us. And it has to appear and be available as and through and in each of us. And that's a really powerful idea. Wow. There is this infinite God power that I'm part of. And then he gave us absolutely no idea how to put that into use. Okay. Great writer, fabulous minister, didn't get to the practical part at all. But the words were really powerful. The words were really inspiring. So about 30, 40, 50 years after he wrote those words, bless you, 30, 40, 50 years after he wrote those words, another fellow, also in New England, said, well, if this works, I ought to be able to work it. He's one of those guys who has a great name. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. You couldn't make up a name like that, right? Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, whose job was watchmaker. And so he started doing experiments to see if by using mental energy only, he could change people's experience. And he started doing healings. And he started with mesmerists, which were early hypnotists, because he thought that the person he was doing the work with needed to be in a trance in order to accept the good that he was intending for them. So he did all of these mental healings together with a hypnotist, and then realized, partway through, that he didn't really need the mesmerist. He could do it himself. All he needed was the patient to be calm and accepting. And they didn't even need to be in front of him. Was it 12,000 healings in 7 years? 12,000 healings in 7 years. He couldn't use the internet. He did a lot of them by mail. People would send him letters, and he would do the mental, spiritual work, and they would be healed, and he would find out later, oh my goodness, this experience in my life completely transformed. He was putting legs on the ideas that Emerson had taken from the previous teachers, the ever upward spirals. So Quimby, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, showed us that it could be done. And then, of course, being a spiritual practice that's turning into a religion, there was immediately growth and deception and stories changing. One of his patients was Mary Baker Eddy, who then miraculously, after her chronic, I believe, back pain was cured by Quimby, she got a divine revelation of this thing that she called Christian Science. She wrote a book about it, did the same practice under the name of Christian Science, and what she was talking about was the Christ power, that Christ love being available to each of us, and that we could change our lives through that, which is absolutely true. And she said three things that were a little bit challenging. One was that everything that anybody needed to know about this, she had written in her book. You didn't need to read anything but her book and the Bible. And she said that you had to do it her way. And it worked, and there's a lot of power and a lot of success. People were able to change their lives using this healing energy. And she didn't make it up. She never claimed to have made it up. She acknowledged it had been there all along, as it has been throughout history, since we began lighting those candles, began having those ideas. She started the Christian Science Monitor publication talking about these sorts of things. The first editor of the Christian Science Monitor was a woman by the name of Emma Curtis Hopkins. And Emma, a mystic. She was a healer. She got it. She knew. She knew when she didn't know why she knew. She had that incredible faith and that vision. My favorite quote from Emma Curtis Hopkins about looking a fact in the face and knowing something better. She says, regardless of what it is we're looking at, we can say, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me now, and I demand to see the blessing in it. And she knew that this was so much bigger than just Christian Science, that there were new ideas and nuances and things that could be added onto this. There was a spiral inviting her ever upward. So, of course, Mary got rid of her. Couldn't have any of that. And she moved from Boston to Chicago, and she set up her own practice of teaching people these metaphysical truths, how we can use all of these lessons that came from Quimby, that came through Emerson, that came from Jesus, that came all the way back in time. All of those suggestions, invitations, and ideas that have been coming along, she started teaching people how to put that into action, how to create something. She was very much a teacher. She did not want to have church. She did not want to do anything other than teach people. But she taught some people, and she taught them actually pretty well. One of the people who she taught was Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of religious science, which is the practice, the branch of New Thought that we're mostly involved in here. She taught the Fillmores, who founded Unity, the Unity Church of Christianity, which is the same ideas framed in a different way. She taught the people who founded Divine Science. She worked with H.B. Jeffrey, who set up his own practice in Texas. They called her the teacher of teachers. She was this bright light. And the things that she said 100 years ago are still resonating. Maybe 150 years ago. A quick plug. Emma's practice was called the Ministry of the High Watch. And Ut Maria Sedilla is running the Ministry of the High Watch now. She's the one who's going to be coming in and doing the Emma Curtis Hopkins workshop for us at the end of April. Really powerful, just to basically be able to take your spiritual tea bag and dip it into that water and see the richness come out as we steep in that. So she taught all of these people, including Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes founded the science of mind and spirit, which is part of that ninth candle that we point to. And when he started publishing the Science of Mind magazine, he wrote down a description of what we believe. And here at New Thought Philadelphia, we usually don't go into this list because it gets a little bit heady and a little bit wordy and a little bit redundant, and I'm not going to apologize, but I am going to share it with you this morning. And instead of just listening to the words and trying to figure out what they mean, allow yourself to just open up and go into a soft focus to get the meaning behind the words. And you'll know that that's working when I get halfway through and you're not saying, oh, God, I wish this were over. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God, is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. We did not come into existence when we were born. We do not go out of existence at the end of our physical life. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. I think that last half a sentence was put in by the marketing department. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. Love the way he says that. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. There is only that one God. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God. We are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and acts upon it. We believe in the healing of the sick and control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. And that's really powerful. Those were foundational ideas when he started publishing the Science of Mind magazine 90 years ago. And every month, that's included again in the Science of Mind magazine. Now, Ernest Holmes was a visionary. What he did was he studied all of the religions in the world, and he recognized the stuff that was common to them, that was working. He basically went and got the goodies from all the religions, and he synthesized it, he put it together, and that's what Science of Mind, or religious science, is from. All of the best ideas. It's the greatest hits of all the religions. In his autobiography, he entitled Open at the Top, because the one thing he knew for sure was that spiral was going to make another upward turn. He said, this is not the last word. This isn't even the last word on Science of Mind. There is more coming, and more and more and more. And that invitation is open to all of the great spiritual leaders, and in fact to all of us. There is an invitation for us to be involved in whatever that next upward spiral is going to be. Talking about the late 90s, really started getting some traction. Oprah had a book that she said, everybody should read this book. It's amazing. And she gave everybody in the audience the book. Now, that was the first time she gave everybody something. Eventually, she gave everybody cars. Now, had she given me a car in the 90s, I would have sold it by now. But I still have the book. I wasn't in the audience. The book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Very simple ideas. The Four Agreements. And what she did was she said, there is something bigger going on here. There is a way that we can align ourselves to create something new in our lives. And there are a lot of other healers and a lot of other mystics and a lot of other teachers who were around and available. There was that movie, The Secret, which said that there's this law of attraction. You can create anything, you can attract anything you want into your life, which was awesome, and that was a breakthrough. That brought these ideas into the mainstream. Now, when they called it a secret, we all said, not a secret, come on, we'll talk about it every Sunday. So we've been teaching classes in this for 80 years, but you want to call it a secret, make it dramatic, fine. And you can, and there's more to it than just the law of attraction. There's a lot of nuance inside of it. But in those ever upward spirals, those were the invitations. One of the people who was in the movie The Secret was a minister who had been involved in religious science and started his own thing, and he was one of the people in The Secret. One of our mentors, Dr. Beckwith at Agape, and his ministry blossomed when that happened. And Agape has 5 core principles, down from 13. Those ever upward spirals are actually fine-tuning a little bit. And I'm going to read you those as well. And you can hear Michael Beckwith's flavor in them. God is good, therefore life is good. Absolute goodness is the substance, the source, and the supply of all existence. This aspect of the Godhead is always in integrity with itself, which means that it cannot contradict its own laws, nature, and relationship to its creation. The next one, you can go back and read the words in the first half of the sentence over and over again and finally get it. God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and omniactive. All existence is the manifest form and activity of spirit. This presence is equally present in all space, times, places, and in all persons. As well as beyond time, space, and manifest creation, ours is a holographic universe in which every part, that which is seen and that which is unseen, is an emanation of the unmanifest whole. Everything in some way is that God essence showing up in a particular form. Everything is God. Not everything is all of God, but God is in and through and as everything. And by the way, that includes each of us. Every person is an individualized expression of God. Every person is made in the image and likeness of God and is capable of awakening to this realization and giving expression to the qualities of unconditional love, compassion, wisdom, bliss, peace, and creativity. Every person is responsible for their own evolution. Every individual has been given the power of free choice and is therefore self-responsible for their evolution, following a path suited to their individual state of evolving consciousness. When we talk about that here, we talk about authority and accountability. We are the authors of our own lives. We are able to pen whatever it is that we want as intentions for what we want to create, and then we are wholly accountable for whatever it is that we create. If I want to create chaos, then I can't complain about living in chaos. If I want to move to California, I can't complain about having all those Californians around me. There's authority and accountability. The universe, being infinite, is in a constant state of evolutionary expansion. We live in a non-static, ever-evolving universe, which is the source of our individual evolutionary impulse and capacity to expand into our fullest potential. So he's talking about that ever upward spiral. That's what New Thought has grown into. And I downloaded this off of their website today because there was talk they were going to be changing it. Because they can change it. Because we are always being invited to have a new idea about what we're creating next. Yeah. Each of us has that authority and accountability. What we say in New Thought Philadelphia is we whittled it down into just one and left all of the nuance behind. So yeah, here's the invitation. You're going to have to get the rest of the details. Because there's 5 from Agape and there's 13 from Science of Mind, and there's, I don't know, there's mitzvahs and rules and going back and back and back. And that's what we start every Sunday morning with. We believe that there's one power, love, intelligence that creates everything, including each of us. And that we each use that same power, love, intelligence to create our lives according to our beliefs. It is done unto you as you believe. Jesus said that really clearly. It is done unto you as you believe. The invitation is, what are you going to believe? I can tell you what you believe. You can tell me what you want to believe. I can tell you what you do believe. Because if it is done unto you as you believe, if your life is turning out according to your beliefs, then your life is a topographical map of your beliefs. Want to know what you believe? Look at your life. You're unhappy with something? You can try and change the map, or you can go back and change the belief. Our new life begins with a new thought. That's the invitation for each of us today. We get to do a little bit of a meditation and deepening into that. Your new life begins with a new thought. You are participating right now, each of us is, in an ever upward spiral. And we get to choose what the next piece looks like. There's the opportunity to create something wonderful. And there's the possibility of creating something that you don't like, and you get a do-over. In an infinite universe, there are infinite mulligans. You can do it over again. Golfer in the back is going, oh, that's a long game. It's infinite. It's infinite. So that's the invitation. To be that bright light of love, to connect with the truth of the divinity that you are, and bring something new and wonderful into being. And you deserve it, because you are wonderful and I love you. So it is.
So it is.